Guys, I'm back, and I wanted to talk about Alien. Now, this review is very late, but I really wanted to take the time to think about this one for a long, long while. Because if anyone that knows me, Alien is like one of the biggest things that I'm a fan of. Like when I was younger, I used to watch the movies all the time. I collected all the Kenner toys. I used to read all the comics. I used to follow all the forums online, all this stuff. So this was a very exciting movie for me because since Alien Covenant, it's been almost 7 years. And everything that I've seen from the trailers, everything that I've heard people saying about this thing, I was really expecting it to go back because it needed a reset. Guys, the last couple of movies has Alien Covenant was almost a disaster. I say almost because that movie was so poorly executed. It left a really bad taste in my mouth, man. The thing about it too is that all of these Ridley Scott movies, even Prometheus, like the ideas that are in these movies are absolutely amazing, but the execution are not good, man. So going into this, man, I was really kind of like, I was there day one. I was there opening night. Had my popcorn, my drink, I was ready to go. And I'll tell you this, when the movie began, the first 5-10 minutes of that movie, I was jumping out of my skin. I was literally jumping out of my skin because it seemed as if this movie was gonna be the one. Because the way that that intro was portrayed, when I should probably say that this is gonna be a spoilery review, but I think everyone has pretty much seen it by now anyway. But the way that that intro was filmed with the Nostromo, and the way that Will and Yutani picked up that alien, and how they showed, there was like a reverence, there was like an extreme reverence, like this thing is something that is the top levels of, it was like 2001 A Space Odyssey. Like the sense of dread, the sense of fear that these guys had when they were picking this thing up, like it came through the screen and it hit you in the face. Like, god damn, that's the alien. Do you know what that is? And unfortunately, I can say that as the movie went on and as I was watching it, it sort of became less and less and less and less. Now, there's something about the Alien movies that I think sort of changed over the years, because I was hoping that this film would be a return to form. We have one alien, because they were really sort of going in that direction with all the marketing materials and everything that I was seeing. Was like, man, these guys are, because what I thought the storyline was going to be was essentially they recover the original alien, they do experiments on this thing, and somehow or another this thing gets out, and you have a situation where like this new crew's coming in and they're dealing with a situation where like you're gonna have a new alien and you're gonna have the original alien, and there's gonna be some sort of situation where like they're gonna kill the new alien and the original big chap is gonna come back. That's what I thought was gonna be the movie. But what ended up happening was, the situation with this movie, I think, was that Fede Alvarez was trying to do everything and the kitchen sink, and it ended up being kind of watered down across the board. Because are you trying to make a horror movie? Or are you trying to do an action movie? Or are you trying to do Alien Resurrection? Are you trying to do Aliens? Are you trying to do Alien 1? And I think that was where he messed up on this thing. So I'm watching this thing and it's confusing to me because I'm like, you just showed that you have a reverence for the original Alien and the damage that that thing can do. Because everyone knows that there was something about that original movie when you had one alien that created so much tension and horror, man. And as good as Aliens was, and it did some things, a lot of that tension and horror was sort of lost. So to have a movie like this where you're gonna now bring in multiple aliens, it's like you gotta bring something more to the table because we've already had that. So this is where I think, you know, I was expecting a horror movie, and instead what I got was an alien movie with action in it, and it felt like kind of a confused film. It felt very confused to me. And you know, I don't think it's really the fault of the director on this one, because you brought in a guy who is essentially a horror director. But you know, for me, I put Alien as the top tier of horror movies. Like, this is like top class. Like, Alien 1 is like a top class horror movie. I put it way above regular horror films. Like, the way that some of the things happened in this movie, it felt like I was watching a slasher movie on the level of sort of Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street levels. And it's not the fault of Fede, because they hired the guy who does those type of movies. The problem is the quality of the Alien name, and that high quality filmmaking has been so diminished over this last few years. It's been so diminished that people are now looking at this one and saying it's way better than the last one, because it is. People are not wrong, it is. But don't forget, Alien Covenant was pretty much a disaster. Now I need to make a separate video just on Alien Covenant, because I think that movie had something very interesting. Because the problem with this movie, Alien Romulus, is that there isn't really anything interesting in it. There's no interesting ideas in it. It's literally just rehashing the things that came before it, applying a new coat of paint, making it look nice, and doing it very competently. And there's nothing wrong with that, because the movie I thought was pretty good. It's pretty good. It's not great. It's nowhere near the quality it should be. But the ideas in it are not bad. But it never really goes deep into those ideas. It's all surface level. Now the concept of just having the original Alien getting picked up and having it get loose, that should have been the movie. That should have been the movie. That's all you need. The problem is they want it to be clever. And when you get clever, you make mistakes. And they wanted to bring in ideas from all the other Alien movies. That was a mistake. Now, this is where things start to get messy for me. It's confusing, and I'm very upset, because how do you start off the movie with showing such reverence from a character in the previous film, and then you bring back Ash in the most disrespectful way I've ever seen that portray a character in any movie. You don't bring the guy back and give him the worst CGI face I've seen since the CGI face. Do you guys remember when like they CGI'd the face of Henry Cavill to remove his mustache in Justice League? This was this was actually, I think this was actually worse. It was so obviously bad that I just couldn't believe that they didn't take the time, especially in a movie where they were talking about practical, practical, practical. We're going back to practical, and you couldn't make this guy a real prop. They did it in Alien 3 in the 90s, and it looked good. Why did they go that route? I will never understand it, because it stood out like a sore thumb, because the movie itself looked so good. There are scenes in this movie that look so amazingly good that I'm like, I'm surprised Fede actually was able to do the things that he did. He actually went above and beyond his own capabilities in this film, which is a crazy thing. The guy did Evil Dead. Anyway, we're putting that to the side. I think with this movie, the problem was they wanted to have their cake and eat it too. Because there's a scene right after this where like they put the Big Chap in this thing as a dead corpse. It looks cool, like the way that they showed that scene, like when they look up at the ceiling and you see this thing hanging, and you're like, oh, this looks cool. Like the skull is showing, and it, like, damn, like the imagery was cool, but like, how are you gonna have so much reverence for this character, for the original, and you're just gonna hang him there like a ceiling ornament? The original Alien. That's the original Alien. What? Ah, guys, this is what I'm talking about. This movie is flip-flopping so much. So anyway, you have a situation now. They're on the station. You saw the badass CGI. Now, you have a part where like, guys, we have to talk about Andy. I want to refer to another video because I think these guys broke it down better than I ever could. I'm going to put a link in the description to the talkback review where they talk about Andy, because I think these guys break it down better than anybody. But it's so strange to have a android in the movie that is the most useless. Like, usually in every single Alien movie, the android is there as a protector. Like, guys, do you remember in Alien Covenant? Was it Walter? Walter was there to protect the crew. That was his whole thing. Because androids are like the most superior. Like, they're stronger, they're faster, they're smarter. There's a scene in Alien Covenant where like this guy punches an alien through the face, and it melts his hand off, and this guy's still like going. Like, just to give you like a gauge of how amazing these creatures are. And Andy's mission is to protect Rain. She had to save him in the beginning of the movie because he was getting jumped. She had to step in to save him. So I think it's a huge missed opportunity, because this is what I thought they were gonna do with this guy. I thought when he got upgraded, I was like, oh, they're gonna do a thing where like he's actually gonna get upgraded throughout the movie and become better and actually turn out to be the hero. But you can't have the guy be a hero and then take away his abilities towards the end of the movie and bring him back to square one again. Like, what are you doing? It's called having a character arc. You gotta give this guy some kind of character arc when he, like, I was so confused. I was so confused. So we're getting towards the end of the film, and everyone who is an Alien fan knows that the endings of all these Alien films, it's always pretty much the best part of the film. It's like, how are we gonna kill this thing? Let's see. Are we going to do a alien style kill, where we get it, this thing is gonna get sucked out the airlock? Are we gonna do aliens, where there's gonna be some kind of big reveal, and you're gonna have this epic battle happening? And you know, I don't know, man. A lot of this looked like it was cut from the. This film felt like Alien's greatest hits, especially towards the end. And it's kind of just annoying because you're like, man, how cool would it have been if instead of having the big champ just be like something that was killed, they just bring it back for the final sequence? How cool would that have been, man? Because the final segment of this movie, it was literally aliens. It was literally aliens without the queen. Now, it was actually kind of a cool setup because throughout the movie there's a situation where there's gravity, and the gravity in this space station is turning on and off. And it had a really cool sequence where there is a situation where she has to get through the acid burns of, well, after she kills the alien, she has to sort of float upwards to get through the acid. And I thought that was actually one of the best sequences of the movie. And it's actually quite an interesting idea of, okay, yeah, we're gonna use zero gravity. And you know what? It felt like Dead Space to me. Like clearly these guys were inspired by the Dead Space games, and that sort of anti-gravity, oh, we're dealing with threats from different directions, how do we handle this kind of thing. So you have a sequence in an elevator whereby Andy is there and Rain is there, and they're trying to escape this place. So at some point, like even before that, like I don't understand the rationale of Rain going back to save Andy when you have everything you need, so get the hell out. Like Andy's a freaking robot. Just get the hell out. So you have a situation where like they turn the gravity back on, the elevator falls down, it kills whatever's left in the hive. Andy jumps down. He kills the alien that's about to kill Rain, which is the main alien of the movie, the scorched alien. And Andy says one of the lines. I just couldn't believe he said the line. I couldn't believe he said what he said. This guy looks at the camera and says, in the most awkward way I've ever seen a line delivered in any movie. He's, "Get away from her, you bitch." He sounded like he didn't know why he was saying the line. Like, he said the line in a way of like, why am I saying this? It was so bad, it felt like it was breaking the fourth wall. I was like he looked at the audience and was like, why am I saying this? That was like, you can't say that. you can't say one of the most iconic lines in the history of sci-fi movies and look at the camera and say it awkwardly. Like, it was almost so bad that I could almost give it a pass of how bad it was. Guys, you don't do that. You don't do that. In what world do you get away with that? So at this point in the movie, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, I'm like, these guys made a very confusing film. But at the same time, you know, I'm watching, I'm like, this is, you know, it's on the level of like, it's better than like in AVP movies. It's better than like all this other crap we've been getting, and I'm entertained by this. but I'm having like conflicted feelings inside myself, and I'm like, okay, it's, this thing is getting towards the end, you know, and it's all right, it's fine, but Fede wasn't done. And I remember when I'm sitting there, I'm watching this thing, and I'm remembering, I was hearing some talks about what happened towards the end of this movie, and sort of the, oh, there's a point in this where this thing is gonna fall off, and I had that in my mind going in. I almost wish I didn't like even see any reviews at all, which I didn't, but there was, you hear talk about things. Ah, my goodness, I wasn't prepared for the final scene of this movie. So there's a callback to Prometheus that they do in the lab, whereby they talk about the black goo again, and how they were trying to utilize this thing and bring humanity into a situation where like we can progress ourselves to be similar to the alien, as it is one of the most adaptable creatures, and it's like a perfect organism, and like humanity is not going to be able to survive. All these, you have all these like interesting ideas about where they could have brought this whole, it's like, this is the things that like, I'm like, why didn't you make the movie more about this? So anyway, we have a situation in the film now where they have these vials of the experimental black goo, and one of the characters, after they pretty much get out of there and they're on this separate space pod or whatever, one of the characters who's pregnant, I forget the sequence of events because it's been so long since I've seen it, but something happens where she's like injured or hurt, and she injects this thing into herself. And you have this sequence where they're trying to introduce some sort of a new alien in the film. And what ends up happening is you now are watching a sequence where it's actually quite a suspenseful and good sequence. And I think if it was done a little bit differently, it could have been probably one of the best scenes in the movie. Because, guys, remember, this whole time, everything in this film is like, everything we've seen in this film has been in previous Alien. You kind of just know the blueprint of how this whole thing is going to play out. So to finally have something, I'm like, oh, here we go, something finally new. Guys, what we ended up getting was a weird combination of the space jockey from Covenant mixed with the alien from Alien Resurrection, except it was tall and skinny. I remember when they first showed this thing in full, I was literally speechless because I couldn't believe how foolish this thing looked. And it's not a matter of like, there are some things that you shouldn't show fully in horror films because it just looks awkward. So I don't know if it was a situation of lighting, maybe it was too bright, because like now in hindsight, after seeing like I've seen clips of this thing behind the scenes, and it actually looks really, really scary. So I don't know if it was a situation where they just couldn't really figure out a way to light this thing, but man, I was like, oh, this is what people were talking about. This is what people were talking about when they said, yeah, everything was good except for that. One thing you do not do is bring back things people don't like. People don't like Alien Resurrection. Like, Alien Resurrection to me is like one of those films where you watch it because, yeah, it's part of the Alien. Yeah, you just watch it because you want to watch something kind of dumb. I do not want to see any references to that movie, especially the newborn. The newborn in Alien Resurrection is one of the dumbest things that has ever been done in the Alien franchise. And you're gonna bring it back? That was a huge mistake, in my opinion. Because the thing is, like, the sequence of events that take place is actually kind of not bad. Like, the final act of this movie, like, the final, like, escape pod sequence is actually pretty cool. But why? It's like a design thing. It's like, guys, I really wish that HR Giga was still around, because Lord, do you know, like, if he was still around and they got him involved in this thing, say, hey, can you draw us up like this crazy like human hybrid alien thing? We're gonna put this thing in a new alien. He would give you something that would look so unbelievably good that it would actually be like, man, people would be like, damn, I wish the whole movie was about that thing. Just look at this guy's design for like for species. This thing, whatever this thing was, it should have looked like species, like human combined with alien, but done it in a proper way. This thing looked stupid. It looked stupid. And you know what's crazy? I thought this thing was CGI, but actually it was actually a real person. But the fact that they filmed it so poorly, it made it look CGI. That's the amazing thing. So, man, they found a way to suck this thing out the airlock like they always do. But this time it went into space, and there's a sequence where the sound drops off, which I thought was actually pretty cool. You know, it was an interesting take. And all in all, man, you know, after the credits roll and I'm sitting there and I'm watching this thing, I'm like, so much of this movie could have been better, man. And it's not bad, you know. This movie is not a bad movie. It's actually, in ways, I think it's a crowd pleaser movie, but it's not really made for the die-hard Alien fans, because when you watch this thing and you start to think about things more and you're like, man, it doesn't make sense that things play out the way they did, because there's so many interesting ways you could have made this story better and more interesting. And even if you read like the comic books, like there are situations in the comic books where it has, you know, where Wayland is like doing experimentations, and it's very much in line for making a movie that the fans can appreciate it, and the common moviegoers can appreciate it too. You could have had the best of both worlds. But I think, you know, when you get a guy who has done slasher movies and this type of thing, it's like you're never gonna get that high level of human interaction and like suspense, because guys, the first Alien movie, like the way that the characters behave and acted in that movie, they acted like real people, and I got to know everyone in that crew. Like I felt like I knew them by the time the alien was around. In this movie, guys were getting chopped off and killed, and I'm like, I don't even know who these people are. They were the most one-dimensional characters I've ever seen in an Alien film. Except for Rain. Rain was okay, like she was fine, but like I expect more, man. Because when these guys were getting dispatched, I didn't really care. I didn't really care, and I expected more from an Alien movie than this, man. So, yeah, in closing thoughts, man, let me just go over some of the things that I actually thought were interesting in this. I did like how we got to see a new form of the alien when it's sort of, because we never got to see in between chest burster and fully grown alien. I thought that was actually a cool idea of having this thing like cocoon itself and grow into the full-size alien, because the way that that thing came out, man, that was actually like really cool. So you see, like this movie, it's so back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, that I'm like, you do one good thing and then you do one stupid thing. You do one good. It's really hard for me to sort of give this thing like a full score of like, this is good. And that's sad that we have to do that, because so much of this was done right. But anyway, this went on a bit longer than I intended to, but I wanted to get my thoughts out there on this. Being, you know, a big Alien fan like I am, I had to give my 2 cents, and I had to think about this for a while. I didn't want to just give a review right after the film because I wanted to sort of sit and marinate after all the dust has settled and give my thoughts and opinions on this. So, yeah, I mean, I might give this a second watch just to sort of see if I missed anything, but you know, I really sort of missed the ideas that Ridley Scott had, because even though his films were poorly executed, the ideas and themes and concepts that were put into them were all new. It was way more interesting than anything in this, which is why I want to do an Alien Covenant review one of these days. So let me know in the comments if you want that review, because that's going to be a very interesting review, because I have a lot to say about that movie. Anyway, thanks for listening, guys. And yeah, I had to come back for this. So remember to like it, like the video, and subscribe if you haven't. And I'll see you guys next time. Later.